The stars looked different from Harmony Station. John Miller noticed this as he stared out the large viewing window. After 20 years as a Marine and another 5 as a diplomatic security officer, he thought nothing could surprise him anymore. He was wrong. First contact had changed everything. Earth achieved faster-than-light travel in 2157, and within months, the Galactic Concord had reached out. A coalition of 27 spacefaring species, they welcomed humanity to the galactic community with open arms, or tentacles in some cases. John shifted his weight, feeling the slight adjustment as the artificial gravity compensated. At 6'2" with broad shoulders and close-cropped gray hair, he stood out among the various alien diplomats who glided through the observation deck. His job was simple: protect Ambassador Alan Wright, Earth's first representative to the stars. Quite a view, isn't it? Ambassador Wright joined him at the window. A slim man with a diplomatic smile, Wright had been chosen for his calm demeanor and exceptional language skills. "Yes, sir," John replied, "though I'm more interested in the beings watching it than the view itself." Wright raised an eyebrow. "Noticed something?" "They watch us, sir, when they think we aren't looking." The ambassador nodded slowly. "I've seen it too, the Vexari especially. They seem concerned." John had noticed this as well. The tall, blue-skinned Vexari, with their 4 eyes and seemingly perpetual expression of calm, would sometimes flinch when humans moved too quickly. It made no sense. The aliens had technologies centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. What could they possibly fear from humans? On the other side of the station, Lisa Green bent over her microscope in the small laboratory she'd been provided. As the embassy's xenobiologist, she was responsible for understanding the biology of the alien species they encountered. But lately, she'd been studying human samples instead. "That can't be right," she muttered, adjusting the settings again. The cell structures she was examining showed unusual properties she'd never seen in her 15 years of biological research. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Dr. Green, am I interrupting?" Ambassador Wright asked. Lisa straightened up, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "No, sir, just confused by some results." "Anything I should know about?" She hesitated. "Maybe. I've been comparing human cellular structures to the database the Concord provided. There are anomalies." "What kind of anomalies?" "Our cells have structures that don't appear in any other species, and our DNA contains sections that seem dormant, like they're waiting for something." The ambassador frowned. "Is this natural? Variation?" "That's the thing," Lisa said, pulling up a holographic display. "These patterns appear artificial, like someone designed them." Wright's diplomatic mask slipped for a moment, showing genuine concern. "Keep this to yourself for now. I need to know more before we take this to Earth." 3 days later, John's security shift had him stationed outside a conference room where Ambassador Wright was meeting with representatives from the Ilthari, an ancient species known for their remarkable lifespans. The meeting had gone on for hours longer than scheduled. When the door finally opened, Wright emerged looking pale. He nodded to John. "Walk with me." They moved through less traveled corridors, Wright checking periodically to ensure they weren't followed. Finally, in an empty garden designed for a methane-breathing species, somewhere humans rarely visited, Wright spoke. "Something's not right, Miller. The Concord isn't telling us everything." John remained silent, letting the ambassador continue. The Ilthari representative let something slip. Earth wasn't discovered recently. They've known about us for thousands of years. John's eyes narrowed. "Why keep that secret?" "That's what I intend to find out." Wright looked at the artificial plants around them. "There's more. A Vexari diplomat, Zorthak, has requested a private meeting, off the records." "Sounds like a security risk." "Probably. That's why you'll be there, though not officially." The meeting took place in Zorthak's private quarters. The Vexari lived in humid environments, and John could feel his uniform sticking to his skin as soon as they entered. Zorthak was taller than most of his kind, with deep blue skin that shimmered slightly in the dim light. All 4 of his eyes, focused on the humans with an intensity that made John instinctively move his hand closer to his concealed weapon. "Thank you for coming," Zorthak said, his translator giving his words a slight metallic quality. "What I'm about to tell you violates several Concord regulations." Wright sat calmly. "We appreciate your risk, Zorthak." The Vexari paced the room, all forearms clasped behind his back. "Your Earth was not left alone by accident, it was quarantined." John and Wright exchanged glances. "Quarantined? Why?" Wright asked. "Because of what you are." Zorthak stopped pacing and all four eyes blinked in sequence. "The Concord races have lived in relative peace for millennia. We resolved our violent tendencies either through social evolution or genetic modification. But humans..." He paused. "Humans? What?" John prompted, a strange tension building in his chest. "You never lost your capacity for violence, your potential for warfare. It frightens the Concord leadership." Wright leaned forward. "We've had our wars, yes, but we've built peace too. We're not just violent beings." "That is precisely what makes you unique," Zorthak said. "You can be peaceful without losing your capacity for war. The rest of us cannot return to our warrior states. We lack the genetic or psychological capacity." John frowned. "Why tell us this now? Why break quarantine at all?" Zorthak's skin darkened, a sign of distress. "Because a threat approaches. The Krathi horde has emerged from uncharted space. They are devastating our outer colonies, and our weapons barely slow them down." "And you think we can help?" Wright asked. "I believe you must help. The Concord's leaders hoped humanity would remain isolated until you outgrew your violent tendencies. But now, those same tendencies may be our only hope." As they left Zorthak's quarters, John's mind raced. Everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the galaxy had just been upended. "Sir," he said quietly to Wright, "Dr. Green's findings about unusual structures in human DNA." Wright nodded grimly. "Might not be natural after all. We need to speak with her immediately." As they walked through the station's curved hallways, John noticed something he hadn't before. The looks from passing aliens weren't just curiosity or condescension. There was fear there. Fear of what humans might be. Fear of what they might become. And for the first time since arriving on Harmony Station, John wondered if they were right to be afraid. Commander Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, Earth's first military vessel assigned to the Concord fleet. 6 months had passed since Zorthak's warning about the Krathi horde. 6 months of preparation, training, and being kept away from the front lines. "Status report," Kate said, brushing a strand of blonde hair from her face. At 38, she had the confident posture of someone who had earned her command through merit rather than connections. "All systems normal, Commander," replied her first officer. "We remain in standby position as ordered by Concord Command." Kate nodded but couldn't hide her frustration. The Defiant carried weapons more advanced than anything Earth had developed independently, gifts from the Concord to help humanity defend itself. Yet they were assigned to evacuation duty, far from the actual fighting. On the tactical display, red markers showed the Krathi advance. 3 more border worlds had fallen in the past week alone. The Concord's forces were being pushed back on all fronts. "Commander," the communications officer called out. "Distress signal from Outpost Sigma 9. They're under attack." Kate moved to the display. Sigma 9 was a small Concord colony, home to about 5,000 civilians, mostly Ilthari and Vexari. It was also far outside their assigned patrol zone. "Concord vessels responding?" she asked. "Negative. Nearest Concord ship is 3 hours away at maximum speed." Kate didn't hesitate. "Set course for Sigma 9, maximum speed. Alert medical to prepare. For casualties." Her first officer looked concerned. "Commander, our orders specifically..." "I'm aware of our orders," Kate cut him off. "But I'm not leaving civilians to die when we can help. Log my decision as a direct violation if you need to." 90 minutes later, the Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Sigma 9. The colony was built on a small moon orbiting a gas giant. From orbit, they could see fires burning across the settlement. 3 Krathi vessels hung in low orbit. They were strange, organic-looking ships, with hulls that seemed to pulse like living tissue. Each was roughly twice the size of the Defiant. Scan. Those ships, Kate ordered. I want to know what we're dealing with. Commander, there are still colonists alive on the surface, her tactical officer reported. Approximately 2,000 life signs concentrated in the central bunker. Krathi forces are attempting to break through. Kate made her decision. Target the smallest Krathi vessel, all weapons. The Defiant shuddered as its main guns fired. Beams of energy struck the Krathi ship, cutting deep into its hull. The vessel spasmed like a wounded animal. Direct hit, the tactical officer shouted, surprise evident in his voice. Enemy ship is severely damaged. Kate was equally surprised. According to Concord reports, their weapons barely scratched Krathi hulls. Yet the Defiant's attack had cut through like a hot knife through butter. The remaining Krathi ships turned toward them, abandoning their assault on the colony. Evasive maneuvers, Kate ordered. Continue firing. What followed was 20 minutes of intense combat. The Defiant was smaller and more agile than the Krathi vessels, and Kate used this advantage, keeping her ship moving while striking at vulnerable points. By the time it was over, all 3 Krathi ships were disabled or destroyed. Casualties? Kate asked, wiping sweat from her brow. Minor injuries only. Hull integrity at 82%. Kate nodded. Begin evacuation of the colonists. I want everyone off that moon in 2 hours. Later, as the Defiant escorted the evacuation ships toward the nearest Concord base, Kate received a private communication from General Paul Martinez, Earth Defense Force Commander. Commander Sullivan, Martinez said, his image appearing on her screen. His dark eyes showed a mix of approval and concern. I've received a report about your engagement at Sigma 9. I take full responsibility for disobeying orders, sir, Kate replied. Martinez waved this away. That's not why I'm calling. I want details on how your weapons performed against the Krathi ships. Kate explained what had happened, including how effective their weapons had been compared to Concord reports. Martinez nodded slowly. This confirms something we've suspected. Human weapons are more effective against the Krathi than Concord technology. But how is that possible? Kate asked. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. It's not about technological advancement. It's about design philosophy. Martinez leaned closer to the camera. We've brought in a military historian, Dr. Greg Hoffman, to study Concord warfare. What he's found is fascinating. When the Defiant arrived at Concord Base Alpha 7, Kate was surprised to find herself welcomed as a hero rather than reprimanded for disobeying orders. The base commander, a tall Ilthari named Nalvek, personally greeted her as she disembarked. Commander Sullivan, Nalvek said, bowing slightly. Your actions saved many lives. Thank you, but I'm confused, Kate admitted. I expected to be relieved of command. Nalvek's expression was hard to read, but his voice carried a hint of embarrassment. The Concord High Command has reassessed its strategy regarding human involvement. He led Kate to a conference room where several people waited, including Ambassador Wright, Dr. Lisa Green, John Miller, and 2 men she didn't recognize. Commander Sullivan, Ambassador Wright said, this is Dr. Greg Hoffman, a military historian, and General Paul Martinez. Dr. Hoffman was a small man with eager eyes and a nervous energy. Commander, your battle at Sigma 9 was remarkable. It proves our theory. What theory? Kate asked. The conquered species have been at peace so long they've forgotten how to fight effectively, Hoffman explained. Their weapons are technologically superior but designed with restraint, to disable rather than destroy. They don't understand total warfare anymore. General Martinez nodded. Dr. Green has discovered something else. Lisa? Dr. Green activated a holographic display showing cellular structures. These are human cells compared to samples from various conquered species. Notice anything? Kate looked, but shook her head. The conquered species all share a similar neural structure that inhibits extreme aggression, Green explained. Some evolved naturally that way, others were genetically modified thousands of years ago. Humans don't have this limitation. So we're more violent, Kate said. That's hardly news. It's more than that, Nalvek said quietly. Your weapons work better against the Krathi because they were designed to kill, not merely incapacitate. Your tactics succeed because you think in ways we cannot. The ancient Ilthari looked at each human in turn. My species has records going back nearly 50,000 years. There was a time when beings much like humans dominated the galaxy. They were called the progenitors, fierce warriors with unmatched combat abilities. What happened to them? John Miller asked. They disappeared after a great war, Nalvek said. Some believed they destroyed themselves. Others thought they ascended to another plane of existence. A few suggested they went into hiding. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Are you suggesting, Kate finally said, that humans are these progenitors? Not exactly, Nalveki replied. But you may be their descendants, and right now you might be our only hope against the Krathi. Professor Sam Jackson wiped sweat from his brow as he carefully brushed dirt from the strange metal object. The excavation site, hidden deep beneath the Pacific Ocean floor, had been discovered just 3 weeks ago. What started as a routine, undersea geological survey had turned into the most important archaeological find in human history. You need to see this, Sam called to his research partner. At 53, Sam had spent his entire career studying ancient human civilizations. Nothing had prepared him for what they were finding now. The dig site contained structures and technology that shouldn't exist. Couldn't exist. Not if human history as they understood it was correct. Carbon dating puts these artifacts at roughly 50,000 years old, Sam explained to the small team of researchers gathered around the central chamber. That's impossible based on our understanding of human technological development. The central chamber contained a curved wall, covered in symbols similar to those the Concord used in their oldest writings. In the middle stood a metallic dais that seemed to hum with energy despite millennia underwater. It's not human, one of the researchers said. No, Sam agreed, but it's on Earth, hidden here long before recorded human history. Thousands of miles away on Harmony Station, Ellen Rodriguez slipped through a maintenance corridor. As an intelligence officer, Ellen had been tasked with a dangerous mission: infiltrate the restricted archives of the conquered and find the truth about humanity's connection to the progenitors. Ellen was small and quick, with short dark hair and the kind of face people tended to forget, perfect for spy work. She waited as a pair of Vexari maintenance workers passed, then continued toward her goal. The forbidden archives were housed in the oldest section of Harmony Station. According to intelligence gathered by John Miller, this part of the station had been built over 6,000 years ago. The door was sealed with both physical and energy barriers. Fortunately, Ellen had help. The access codes provided by Zorthak, who had become a valuable ally, bypassed the main security. The physical lock required a conquered citizen's genetic signature. Ellen pressed a small device containing synthesized Ilthari DNA against the panel. The door slid open silently. Inside, data crystals lined the walls, each containing thousands of years of history. Ellen moved quickly to the section Zorthak had identified. She inserted a specialized device into the crystal reader and began downloading the contents. What she found shocked her. References to the progenitors appeared throughout the oldest records. They were described as a warrior species of unmatched skill and aggression. Images showed beings that looked remarkably human, though with subtle differences in bone structure and musculature. But the most disturbing information appeared in records from 49,000 years ago. A galactic war of unprecedented scale, billions dead, planets rendered uninhabitable, and at the center of it all, the progenitors. Ellen downloaded everything she could find and slipped out of the archives. She needed to get this information to Earth immediately. Back on Earth in the underwater ruins, Sam's team made another discovery. A hidden chamber, sealed and preserved, contained what appeared to be a stasis pod. As they cleared away sediment, a control panel lit up, responding to their presence. Don't touch anything, Sam warned. But it was too late. The panel had already activated. The stasis pod hummed to life. The top became transparent, revealing a humanoid figure inside. Not human, but similar. The being's skin had a faint blue tint, and its proportions were slightly wrong. Longer limbs, a larger cranium. With a hiss, the pod began to open. On Harmony. Station, High Counselor Vale, leader of the Conquered, summoned Ambassador Wright to a private meeting. The tall, slender alien's expression was grave as Wright entered his chambers. "Ambassador," Vale said, "we have a problem." "The Krathi?" Wright asked. "No, your people's curiosity." Vale gestured to a screen showing the underwater excavation site, on Earth. "You've discovered something you weren't meant to find for at least another century." Wright kept his expression neutral, though his heart raced. "You knew about these ruins?" "Of course. We've known about Earth since the beginning of the Conquered." Vale sighed, a strangely human gesture. It was hoped that humanity would evolve past its violent tendencies before discovering its heritage. "Tell me the truth," Wright demanded. "All of it." Vale studied Wright for a long moment. "Very well. The beings you call progenitors were the most feared warriors the galaxy has ever known, not because they were inherently evil, but because they were unmatched in combat and utterly committed to victory once provoked. And humans are their descendants, in a manner of speaking. When the final war ended, the surviving progenitors realized they had nearly destroyed all sentient life in the galaxy. In an act of extraordinary sacrifice, they used genetic engineering to create a new version of themselves, less aggressive, more compassionate, but retaining their potential for warfare if ever needed. "They created humans," Wright said, understanding dawning. "Yes, they established your species on Earth, erased your advanced technology, and encoded certain dormant genes that would only express themselves under specific conditions." Vale turned to the window, looking out at the stars. "The Concord was formed by the species who survived the progenitor wars. We vowed to prevent such devastation from ever happening again. By keeping us isolated. At first, yes, later by monitoring your development. Earth was placed under quarantine until you either evolved beyond your violent tendencies or until you were needed again. In the underwater chamber on Earth, the being from the stasis pod fully awakened. Its eyes, a startling gold color, focused on Sam. "You have returned," it said in a language Sam somehow understood despite never hearing it before. "The failsafe has activated." "Who are you?" Sam asked. "I am the architect, custodian of forgotten history." The being looked around at the humans. "You are different than I remember. The modifications worked better than we hoped." "Modifications? What are you talking about?" The architect's expression showed something like pride. "You were our greatest creation. A new version of ourselves, designed to be better than we were, more balanced, yet still capable of accessing the warrior genes when needed." "I don't understand," Sam said. "You are the children of the progenitors," the architect explained. "We remade ourselves into you, buried our technologies, started fresh. We hoped you would learn from our mistakes. Why are you waking up now?" The architect's expression darkened. "Because the failsafe has been triggered. A threat has emerged that the peaceful races cannot contain. The Krathi have returned." "Who are the Krathi?" Sam asked. "Our greatest mistake," the architect said sadly. "A branch of progenitors who rejected our path to peace. We thought them lost, but it seems they have returned. And now the defender genes within your people must be awakened." Sam felt a chill run down his spine. "What defender genes?" "The dormant genetic sequences that give you the abilities of your ancestors," the architect said. "Your people were never meant to be merely human. You were designed to be the galaxy's hidden guardians, war gods sleeping until needed." The architect touched the control panel, and the entire chamber lit up with holographic displays showing human DNA. Certain sections glowed brightly. "It is time for humanity to remember what it truly is." Major Steve Collins crouched behind a fallen pillar as energy blasts struck the ground around him. The Krathi attack on the Vixari colony world had been sudden and overwhelming. 3 hours into the battle, half his squad was dead or wounded, and the remaining conquered forces were in full retreat. This was supposed to be a simple evacuation mission. Get in, get the colonists out, get back to the fleet. That plan had fallen apart when 5 Krathi cruisers dropped out of hyperspace directly above the colony. Steve checked his weapons charge. Almost depleted. He had maybe 10 shots left. Harrison, Baker, cover the east approach, he ordered through his comm. Davis, help me with these civilians. A group of Vexari colonists huddled in the ruins of their community center, eyes wide with fear. Steve had never seen the normally composed aliens look so terrified. A Krathi war cry echoed through the streets. They were getting closer. Steve had seen the enemy up close now. They looked disturbingly similar to humans, but with gray skin, protruding jaws filled with sharp teeth, and eyes that glowed red in their armored helmets. We need to move, Steve told the civilians. Now. As they began evacuating the colonists, a group of Krathi warriors charged their position. Steve raised his rifle and fired. The first 2 shots hit a Krathi in the chest, dropping it immediately. The third shot caught another in the leg. Something strange happened then. As the battle intensified, Steve felt a sudden clarity descend over him. Time seemed to slow. He could see the patterns in the Krathi movements, predict where they would be before they got there. His aim became flawless, his movements precise and economical. Without conscious thought, he dropped his depleted rifle and picked up a fallen Krathi weapon. It felt right in his hands, as if he'd trained with it for years. Major? Private Harrison looked at him with confusion. How are you doing that? Steve didn't answer. He couldn't explain it himself. He moved through the battlefield with unnatural speed and precision, dropping Krathi warriors with every shot. In minutes, the immediate threat was eliminated, and they were able to move the civilians to the evacuation point. Hours later, aboard the USS Defiant, Dr. Olivia Ward studied the medical scans with growing excitement. At 35, Olivia was one of Earth's leading geneticists. Since the discovery of the architect and the revelation about humanity's origins, she had been working to understand the dormant genetic sequences in human DNA. Major Collins, she said, looking up at the soldier sitting on the examination table. Your combat awakening confirms our theory. Steve looked uncomfortable. He was a soldier, not a lab specimen. What theory is that, Doc? That the dormant progenitor genes can activate under extreme stress. She showed him the scan results. See these highlighted areas? These are genes that were dormant in your previous scans. Now they're fully expressed. Steve studied the display. What does that mean for me? Enhanced strength, speed, reflexes, improved tactical awareness, possibly other abilities we haven't identified yet. Olivia couldn't hide her excitement. You're the first documented case of natural awakening, but there have been rumors of similar incidents on other battlefronts. Commander Kate Sullivan entered the medical bay. Dr. Ward, I need to speak with you and Major Collins. Once they were alone in Olivia's office, Kate activated a security field to prevent eavesdropping. Earth Command has authorized Project Awakening. Olivia's eyes widened. They've approved human testing. Kate nodded grimly. The Krathi have taken 3 more conquered worlds. The line is breaking. High Command believes we don't have time to wait for natural awakenings. It could be dangerous, Olivia warned. We don't fully understand the process yet. That's why they're asking for volunteers only, Kate replied. She turned to Steve. They want you to help train them, Major. 3 weeks later, Lucas Bennett stood in the center of the transformation chamber aboard Earth's newest battleship, the USS Invictus. At 28, Lucas had been a star athlete before joining the Space Marines. His physical condition made him an ideal candidate for the first deliberate gene activation. The procedure is simple in theory, Dr. Ward explained from the control room. We'll use the architect's technology to stimulate the dormant sections of your DNA. The process should take about an hour. Lucas nodded, trying to hide his nervousness. And if it works? If it works, you'll be the first human in 50,000 years to intentionally access your progenitor heritage. The chamber hummed to life. Beams of golden light surrounded Lucas, penetrating his skin. He gasped as intense heat spread through his body. For several minutes he writhed in pain as his cells reorganized themselves at the genetic level. When it was over, Lucas stood straighter. His eyes, once brown, now had flecks of gold in them. He felt different, stronger, more aware. "How do you feel?" Olivia asked through the intercom. Lucas looked at his hands. They looked the same, but he could feel the power in them. "Like I've been asleep my whole life and just woke up." Tests confirmed what they had hoped. Lucas showed strength and reflexes far beyond human norms. His cognitive abilities had also improved, particularly in areas related to spatial awareness and tactical thinking. But there were concerns, too. Lucas reported moments of intense aggression that he struggled to control. His emotional responses were heightened, especially when he felt threatened. Despite these issues, Project Awakening continued. More volunteers underwent the procedure. Not all survived, but those who did formed the core of a new fighting force, unlike anything Earth had produced before. On the bridge of the USS Invictus, Admiral Karen Lewis studied the tactical display showing the approaching battle. The Krathi had pushed deep into conquered space and now threatened the key world of Arcturus Prime. If it fell, the route to Earth would be open. "All enhanced squadrons report ready, Admiral," her first officer announced. Karen nodded. At 57, she had spent her entire career preparing for battles that never came. Now she faced the greatest threat humanity had ever known, with weapons that had never been tested in full-scale combat. "Deploy the fleet in Formation Delta," she ordered, "and signal Concord Command that we're moving to engage." The battle plan she had developed was unlike anything the Concord had tried before. Instead of the defensive posture their allies favored, Karen had designed an aggressive, multi-layered attack that would use the enhanced humans' abilities to their fullest. As the fleet moved into position, Karen received a private message from High Counselor Vael. "Admiral Lewis," the Concord leader said, his voice solemn. "What you do today will change the course of galactic history. For better or worse, humanity has embraced its heritage. I pray you remember the lessons your ancestors forgot." Karen thought about this as she watched her ships move into battle formation. Humanity had awakened the war gods sleeping in their blood. The question now was whether they could control what they had unleashed. General Jason Webb stood before the massive view screen on the bridge of the USS Invictus. The Battle of Arcturus Prime had been a turning point. For the first time since the war began, the Krathi had been pushed back. The cost had been high. 3 human ships lost thousands of lives, but the victory was undeniable. "The Krathi fleet is in full retreat, General," his tactical officer reported. "Shall we pursue?" Jason considered the question. At 45, he had spent his career in conventional military service. Now, as one of the first to undergo the awakening procedure, he commanded Earth's enhanced forces. The golden flecks in his green eyes caught the light as he studied the tactical display. "Yes," he decided, "but maintain defensive formations. They may be baiting us into a trap." 6 months had passed since Project Awakening began. Over 5,000 human soldiers had undergone the procedure. Not all had survived, and some who did struggled with the psychological impact of their transformation. The aggression, the heightened senses, the memories that didn't seem to be their own. Quinn Harper was one of those struggling. A lieutenant in the Space Marines before enhancement, Quinn now served as a squad leader in the elite progenitor unit. The name still felt strange to him. Progenitor, as if they were embracing something ancient and dangerous. "Lieutenant Harper," General Webb's voice came through his comm. "Your squad will lead the boarding party on the disabled Krathi vessel." "Understood, sir," Quinn replied. He gathered his team, 12 enhanced soldiers, each worth a small army in combat capability. Their shuttle approached the massive Krathi ship floating dead in space. The battle had damaged its engines and weapons, but internal systems still functioned. Intelligence wanted the ship captured intact to study Krathi technology. As they docked and cut through the hull, Quinn felt the familiar battle focus descend over him. His senses sharpened. Time seemed to slow. He could hear his teammates' heartbeats, smell the strange metallic scent of the Krathi ship. They encountered resistance immediately. The Krathi fought with desperate ferocity, but the enhanced humans moved through them with brutal efficiency. Quinn found himself almost enjoying the combat, a realization that disturbed him deeply. In the central chamber of the ship, they found something unexpected. Not a command center, but a large circular room filled with stasis pods. Inside each pod was a Krathi, but different from the warriors they had fought. Smaller, less aggressive-looking. Civilians, Quinn realized. They've got their civilians with them. One of his squad members shrugged. Makes eliminating them easier. Quinn turned sharply. We're not eliminating anyone who isn't actively trying to kill us. The soldier looked surprised. But sir, they're Krathi. They're non-combatants, Quinn insisted. We secure them and call this in. Back on Earth, Director Laura Daniels faced the combined Earth-Concord Council in the newly expanded Earth Embassy. At 50, Laura had spent her career in diplomacy. Now she led the Human-Concord Integration Council, tasked with managing the rapidly changing relationship between humans and the galactic community. The reports from the captured Krathi vessel are concerning, Laura told the assembled delegates. It appears the Krathi are not an invasion force as we believed. They're refugees. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Ambassador Wright leaned forward. Refugees from what? Something they call the devouring. According to their records, their home systems were consumed by an unknown force. They've been fleeing for nearly a century, looking for new worlds to colonize. That doesn't excuse their attacks on conquered worlds, a Vexeri delegate objected. No, it doesn't, Laura agreed. But it contextualizes their actions. They attempted peaceful contact with the Concord 50 years ago and were rejected. After that, they decided to take what they needed by force. High Counselor Vile looked troubled. Why were we not informed of this contact? That, said a new voice, is the question we should all be asking. The chamber fell silent as a figure entered, tall and slender, with silver skin and eyes that shifted through all colors of the spectrum. The being moved with fluid grace. "Am the emissary," it announced. "I speak for those you might call the engineers." "Engineers?" Laura asked. "Engineers of what?" "Of all of you," the emissary replied. "The progenitors, the conquered species, the Krathi, all were designed by us, parts of a grand experiment in evolution and coexistence." Stunned silence filled the chamber. The progenitors were our first attempt at creating perfect defenders, the emissary continued. Strong, intelligent, adaptable, but too aggressive. When they nearly destroyed all other life in the galaxy, we guided their transformation into humans, a more balanced version. The Krathi? A control group, progenitors who rejected peace and continued on their original evolutionary path. We isolated them to study the difference. And the conquered species? Ambassador Wright asked. Each designed for different roles in our galactic ecosystem. Some for science, some for art, some for philosophy, but none capable of defending against external threats. General Webb stepped forward. "Are you saying this entire war was some kind of test?" "Indeed," the emissary confirmed. "We needed to know if humans could access their defender heritage without losing the balance they had achieved. If they could, be warriors without becoming conquerors." Quinn Harper, who had been standing quietly at the back of the chamber, felt anger rise within him. People have died. Worlds have burned. All for your test? The emissary turned its color-shifting eyes to him. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Far more dangerous than this controlled conflict. We needed to know if you were ready. Ready for? What? Laura asked. To take your place as the defenders of all sentient life in this sector. The Krathi horde was a simple test compared to what lies beyond the galactic rim. In the days that followed, an uneasy peace was established. The Krathi, learning the truth about their origins, agreed to cease hostilities. The Concord, faced with the reality of their engineered limitations, reluctantly accepted a new power structure with humans taking a central role in defense and security. Director Daniels established new protocols for enhanced humans, including psychological support and integration training. Quinn Harper led efforts to find a balance between their awakened abilities and their humanity. On the observation deck of Harmony Station, John Miller stood beside Ambassador Wright, watching ships come and go. Humans and aliens worked side by side, rebuilding what had been damaged in the war. "Do you think we passed their test?" John asked. Wright considered the question. "I think we showed them something they didn't expect. We awakened our war god heritage, but we didn't let it consume us. We fought, but we also showed mercy. We protected rather than conquered. And now? Now we prepare." Wright gestured to the stars beyond the window. "The emissary wasn't lying about the threats beyond our galaxy. We have a role to play now. Guardians rather than conquerors." John nodded, thinking of all that had changed. Humanity had discovered its true nature as descendants of the galaxy's most feared warriors. They had embraced that heritage to protect others. The hidden war gods had awakened, but with a new purpose. Not to rule, not to conquer, but to defend.